So here's a little bit just in terms of making sure all of our audience understands, and we refresh those of us who've done this before and anyone new to the committee. The purpose of today's hearing is an opportunity for student groups and campus departments to request increases in tuition and student fees for students, to provide their feedback on these proposed changes through writing or oral testimony. We will also have information-only presentation at the very end from housing and dining, but that will not be voted on by the Budget Committee, but simply that is a part of the agenda for total transparency and fee discussions. In a separate meeting on Friday morning that will be chaired by Stacy Pearson, our VPFA, the Budget Committee will meet and consider the information presented today in our student testimony. The committee will also form recommendations for our president for these tuition and fee increases. The president reviews all of this materials, develops a final tuition and fee recommendation to the Idaho State Board of Education, and that will become effective with the next academic year. And the board will consider all college and university tuition fee requests in its April 16th and 17th meeting in Moscow, Idaho. So the way we will go forward today in our hearing process, each presenter will be invited to the podium to discuss the requested increase by one in order of today's agenda. I think everyone had an opportunity to look at the agenda. Presenters, please limit your comments to 10 minutes. We don't have a hook. We're not going to make you get off the stage, but we will give you a general reminder because we want to make sure we give time for everyone. And only committee members are permitted to ask questions of the presenters. So I will just say, if there's students in the audience that particularly feel like they have a question, I think our student members would feel free to have a tap on the shoulder if that's something that you feel the need to do. But only committee members can ask questions. And if we have any students testifying today, we will ask you to please make sure you've signed up with Jessica Martin, also who's our administrative assistant in the VPSA office, who's helped set this up today. And make sure you sign up with her. At the conclusion of each individual presentation, students will be asked to come up to the podium one by one, and you'll have about 3 minutes. Again, we'll time you, try to give you general reminders if you're starting to go over. And we'd like, for all presenters, we'd like to make sure we have written testimony of what you're going to be telling us today. There are also refreshments in the back. I know these meetings can go long, so we certainly hope that you take advantage of those as well and make yourself comfortable. We again appreciate your attendance. And we'll begin. And we have Marty and Stacy down for our general education and tuition, but we understand that Stacy Pearson, who is our VPFA, will be the one presenting on that today.
Thank you and good morning. So I'm starting out with the general tuition increase request that we're making for the year. So this is not inclusive of the other fees. So when you hear percentages, that won't be the total proposed increase, but just the tuition portion only. I want to make sure that's clear because I know we often talk in terms of the overall increase. This year it's fairly straightforward. What we're seeking is for the part-time increase a 3.5% increase, and that's a very deliberate amount because in our consultation with the State Board of Education, they wanted to know what was the amount that we needed to cover what is called the fund shift, which I will explain here, and that is that the legislature is seeking to fund a 3% change in employee compensation, which we call CEC, or salary increase, of 3%. In addition, there are some increases in the health benefit costs, which the state is proposing to fund. Now, while that is not a final decision, it has been approved by the CEC committee and is currently moving forward through the legislature, so that is what we have to plan for. At Boise State, as many other state universities, over the last 10 to 12 years, our general operating budget has shifted in being funded, where it used to be funded 75% by state appropriations. It's now funded about 25% state appropriations, and the student fee revenues are about fee revenues, were at 25%. Now it's at about 50-50, give or take a little. So about half of our operating budget is funded from the state general account and half is funded from tuition and fee revenues. Well, what has happened, as you can imagine, and you already know, is tuition has had to increase significantly in order to fund that 50% portion. However, in the last few years, we've really made concerted efforts, particularly since the recession, to really reduce that impact. So last year we asked for a 3% increase in the part-time tuition and then a 6% in full-time, which is partly to get us to the linear tuition, which I will discuss in a minute. So that 3.5% in part-time combined with a proposed increase of 9%, or the $209 that you see listed in your agenda, is the money that would be needed to pay for the tuition-funded portion of the salary increase and the health benefits increase. And that is what we refer to as fund shift. When the state increases the salaries and benefits by 3%, we have to increase tuition for those faculty and staff who are funded on the tuition portion, hence the fund shift. Starting about 3 years ago, the state used to fund that prior to the recession, but they no longer do so. So basically, it requires that we have that increase in tuition so that we can fund those same salary and benefit increases for all of our faculty and staff. And so that is what the money would be used for from that amount of the increase. The reason the full-time is higher is, for those of you who have been to these meetings for the last few years, the university is gradually moving to a more linear-based tuition. What that means is charging per credit, so less of a plateau. Right now, your plateau is if you take more than 12 credits, say 13 to 17 credits, you pay one rate. And we've gradually been moving that up. Last year, we tried to get it to 13 credits for the linear tuition, but the board reduced the fee a bit, so we have a little bit of ways to go this year. So the increase in the full-time tuition ask is really to get us fully linear at 13 credits, and then 14, 15, and 16 credits would be at that same rate, and 17 credits and above, we would add only the tuition portion per credit, meaning we wouldn't add the fee portion. So in reality, it's a bilinear model in that our goal is to be fully linear in our tuition and fees up through 15 credits. So you can see we have a couple to go over the next few years. And then above that amount, it would be a lower increase because it would only be for the tuition portion. And the reason that we are looking at that is it helps us fund more of the coursework for students who do take more credits, and allows us to hire the additional faculty needed. I will point out that our part-time rate is by far the lowest in the state. Currently, it's $264 per credit through 12 credits. I think at the University of Idaho, it's $342 per credit, and Idaho State, $328 per credit. So that's a particular mission for Boise State because we want to make sure that for the students that come here and do go on a part-time basis, that they aren't funding more of the needs required for full-time students. So again, it's a gradual transition and has been working out well for us, but we do have to go before the board and seek that approval. I hope that wasn't too confusing, so I'll stand for questions now. Yes?
The per credit at U of I, you said it's 342. Does that translate into them having a plateau at a much earlier credit number?
I believe the University of Idaho's plateau is at 12 credits. So we have a very similar full-time rate for 13 credits and above, but part-time their rates are quite a bit higher. there any other questions from the committee? Yes.
Last year you increased tuition by $156. Can you explain what was that for and how was it used?
Yes, Jake, I can. Last year when we increased both our part-time and our full-time tuition, we did a little bit of the same of what I'm talking about with the salary compensation. The state funded a 1% increase, and we had to fund the rest of the 1%. In addition, the state funded a one-time 1% increase. That is, it didn't go into the base. So in total, we had to fund 2% from that tuition increase, as well as a fairly significant increase in the benefit costs. So most of that went to that amount. In addition, the university sought state funding for the Complete College Idaho initiative, and basically that initiative is to help students complete their course of study and graduate. So it was mostly to fund faculty and advisors, as well as some staff support for those programs. And I can't remember the exact amount of the request, but we were funded at significantly below the request. So we used some of that tuition revenue to make up for that. Yes.
Do we think there are any long-term implications of continuing to place the burden on the students as opposed to the state and their lack of funding in our kind of constant accommodating to our lack of budgetary support from our state government? Down the road, is that going to kind of bottleneck us into always being more dependent on getting the money from the students? I guess it's more of a philosophical question than anything. I'm more just curious.
Yes, Chris, thank you for that question. It's something that I worry about all the time, is what are we going to do as the state continues? And let me be clear, they're not disinvesting, but they're also not investing at the rate that we need them to. And so, for example, I think you'll see in your materials I talk about the non-funding of the enrollment workload adjustment. The enrollment workload adjustment is a formula, a funding formula that funds enrollment growth over a 3-year rolling average. And as of now, Boise State is in arrears for that via that funding formula of about $8 million. That's very significant. That makes this situation up, so to speak, that if we were to have that funding, you wouldn't see these types of increases. What I will say is, if you, and I didn't bring this chart, I probably should have, if you look at our tuition and fee increases over the last decade, you'll see that we're really slowing down on those increases. And in fact, as I indicated this year, it literally is to just make up that portion of the salary and benefits increase that the state will not fund. That's another significant adjustment that we've had discussion with our state board as well as with the legislature of encouraging them to going back and funding that portion of the salary increase, which would also reduce the need for this. I wish it were going to be better, but I do think what you'll see is we're trying to figure out ways through program prioritization and other means to reduce our costs and help with this situation. So it's a combination of state funding, tuition and fee revenue, and reallocation within our current budget to meet our most critical needs. Any other questions?
We have one student that would like to speak on this issue. So if Cole Easter would come forward, please. We are taping this and trying to stream it, so we're going to ask all presenters to come up here.
I should have combed my hair better. Anyway, I just wanted to take a moment to respond to what she had to say there. I represent a portion of the student body here at Boise State that is shrunken over the years with the influx of out-of-state students come in. I currently am a part-time student. I also am a resident of Idaho, born and raised in Idaho. I had the opportunity to come to Boise State when I first got out of high school in 2005, and I can tell you it was a much different experience than what I've experienced here the last 2 or 3 years. It also was financially different. I didn't have any debt those first couple of years that I was at Boise State before I went another direction and then decided to come back. This time around, it's much different. I'm looking at about $20,000 in debt. And what has been offered to me as a student really hasn't changed that much. I understand there's new programs and facilities that have been built over the years that have, required increases in tuition. But as far as just what I as a student have received out of it, the opportunity I get with my degree of finding work in this community and the amount that I will receive in pay from that job has not changed that much. And that's where the problem lies. That's where really, with tuition continuing to increase, but the public sector and the jobs there, they're not increasing at the same rate. So students are continuing to get further and further in debt. They're having to risk more on what this education is worth, and in reality, the education is becoming worth less at the end of the journey. And that's a problem. And what we're doing, I feel like, is pinching the Idaho students even more so, because we're coming from backgrounds and homes that don't have as much money as some of the students coming from out of state. And so it makes it even more difficult for those of us that are local here to Idaho. I don't want to argue too much over numbers. I do disagree a little bit with your numbers. I kind of look through some of them. I'm not an accounting or a finance major, although I've done my fair share. And, I see a 9% raise. I see the 3.5% you're asking to cover the health insurance and stuff. I understand the 3% for the employees. That leaves 3% out there that I don't know where that's, what that's supposed to entail. So that would be, I guess, a question I would have for you. When I came in 2005, tuition was $1,800 roughly for a full-time semester. It's $3,600 according to the proposal. That's doubled in 10 years. Salaries haven't doubled. That's big, and that hurts. The only other thing I'd like to kind of say really quickly, if I have time.
You're out of time, but I'll give you a little bit more.
Okay. I think maybe I understand how the funds are not proportionately divvied out amongst the universities here in Idaho, and that's an issue with the State House that I hope Boise State keeps pursuing and try to deal with. But at the same time, I understand that what you're given is what you have to work with in that time frame. And I'm not sure if Boise State over the years has used those funds as wisely as maybe they should have. We get less money than those other universities, yet we have higher paid top faculty. President Custra, et cetera, some of them get paid a lot more than those other, I shouldn't say a lot more. To me, it's a lot more. $20,000 is quite a bit. But, they get paid more than that top faculty. And I see a bigger gap between the haves, we'll call them, and then the people down towards the bottom. And that's a problem, too. It happens in the private sector all the time, and it's a big issue. And I think had we used the funds a little differently, we could have brought that together. I'll go ahead and stop. I could go on. So. Thank you.
Your time's up, but thank you very much, Cole. You want to say anything else about that?
Yeah, I can. Should I come up there right next?
So you can be on camera. Yes, you will be next as well. Stacy will also finish any other questions about tuition, but she will next present on the facilities fee.
Yes, thank you. It is true that the request in for the full-time, which would be 13 to 17 credits, is a higher percentage. That is the $209.75 for full-time, and that's a 9.1% increase. And again, that helps us meet that total cost of the salary and benefit increase, but it also allows us to be fully linear at 13 credits, and that's the difference between the percentages.
Do you have one more question, Chris, on this topic?
More like comments. Am I allowed to do so?
Sure.
Cool. I think I share a similar frustration to our friend Cole here in that we have an aggression that is to be channeled somewhere. And I, having been involved in this process for a while, am beginning to learn that I should be channeling it more aggressively towards the state, not to take all the pressure off of our university because we are far from perfect and there is a widening pay gap. I understand that too. But we also saw a major influx of students in the time of the economic recession, especially around 2009, 2010, and we began to boom as a university, and that requires a lot more infrastructure that came way too fast, which requires a lot of cost and accommodation. And so there are things at play. The state, economic crisis, the way that our society is going and valuing that an undergraduate degree, which we are a strong undergraduate degree university, is becoming less and less valuable in that more people are getting them, and we require higher degrees to get further in terms of upward mobility with regards to educational backings. However, as someone, and I share this sentiment with a lot of students here, that believes education is simply a human right, we should be able to provide it for, ideally in the future, free. Don't get me wrong, I hope no one is stirring too violently in their chair right now. But we do have certain places we can take bigger looks, and I appreciate the way that you brought that up so pragmatically. However, I would love to see more of these efforts channeled towards putting the pressure on political involvement, civic engagement, and indulging in our civic duty to place pressure on our state government to allow the funding to match our needs, but not taking responsibility entirely off the university. That would be my comment.
Thank you for all comments. Next, we will move to the facilities fee. And again, Stacy will present.
Thank you. A little bit of history. The university started charging the strategic facilities fee in 2006 to help fund the campus master plan. I think since then you've probably seen a lot of evidence of how we have utilized that fee. We've added over 1.5 million square feet of space to this campus, which is pretty impressive in the time frame. And yes, it comes with a cost, but the way that we have been able to use the strategic facilities fee is to leverage state funding, private funding, and even federal funding in order to build the facilities. An example is the environmental research building, where we received $10 million from the state in order to build that, and we're able to bond the rest of it so that the building could go up in a timely manner. So what this fee is used is to service the bonds that the university issues in order to be able to build these buildings. Many years ago, the state used to fund academic facilities. They really haven't funded what we call auxiliary facilities. For instance, our athletics facilities and the building that you're in does not receive state funding. So the source of funding for these types of facilities is through bonding with our facilities fee. And again, we have been very careful as we develop our capital plans to match what will come from another source. What we pretty much avoid is that any one building will only be funded off of the revenues or from the student facilities fee, with the exception of student facilities themselves, like the rec center and like this building. So in our campus master plan, which I apologize, I actually left my map back in my office, but I think over the years you've seen our master plan, and in fact we're in the process of updating that, and that will be taken to the board next month. But the two buildings that we are working on right now are a materials research building and a fine arts facility. And again, we've put some plans into place to move those ahead, but in anticipation of issuing bonds to match the private funds that should be available in fiscal year 2017, we need to increase this facilities fee so that we are sure to have enough of the bonding capacity that we will need so that we can bid that project and get it underway early in 2017. I didn't go over the amounts here. The amount of the increase that we're seeking is for the full-time. Again, the 14 through 17 credits is $40, and part-time is $6 per credit is in the request for that facilities fee. This is only for the construction of the facility. It does not include the operations. When the university does build an academic building, we do receive funding, some funding from the state to help with the additional utility, custodial, and maintenance costs. Questions? Kimber? Do I call on Kimber? Or do you-
Sure.
Okay.
So of the two new buildings that are, that we're considering, how does that impact our overall classroom space, either through new classroom space, or shifting of space? Because right now, we're kind of bursting at the seams in terms of space for classes.
Yes, we are. And while I don't have the plans for those buildings, I do know in both cases they include additional classroom space. There's a very, very compelling presentation on the fine arts building of the arts departments are currently spread in 11 different locations. Am I correct about that?
I think it's 7.
7, or at any rate, a lot, which that, well, certainly an inconvenience to the faculty that work in that department, also to the students who have to figure out where to go next for each of those, or either meeting with the faculty or to attend a class. So the hope is to bring all of that together, and we take very seriously then the reconfiguration, remodeling of the space that is left behind and how that will be utilized, because as you said, we are bursting at the seams.
Any more questions?
Yes.
What would be the timeline for those new buildings to be dug and started at groundbreaking to finish? Do you know?
Generally speaking, we like to bid in early spring. It's the most optimal bid time we found in the past, and so we're looking at 2017. So maybe about 2 years from now, that we would be bidding the project, and then once construction begins, I notice it's been between 18 to 24 months that it's taken for completion. And again, we always try to hit the summer for the completion, and then there can be a move-in and then opening for the fall term. So that's really the timeline we work with. Yes, Chris.
So this does just seem like kind of a high jump in fees. Is this just in preparation of building all these new buildings, and eventually it would level out a few years from now once you've kind of saved up essentially this money, or is this a trend that we can expect to see continue of, like 20 to 30% increases every year?
Chris, that's a good question, because the way we've managed this fee is we do not increase it every year. We wait until, based on our master plan, and in most cases we have to be fairly assured, pretty assured, that we're going to get the private funds and the state funds. And that, since that has just, become available to us, is when we look to say, how much are we going to need? So it's really in preparation for, and once we have that available for that issuance of the bonds, then we don't increase it again until that need arises. Over time, if we're able to refund bonds for lower rates, which is going to be hard, because one of the good things about the recession is we got amazingly low interest rates in order to build our facilities. But when there are refunding opportunities, that actually, brings additional capacity into the pool and alleviates the need for an increase. So we just try to look ahead to say, well, we're ready when we have all the funding in place to go. And then typically what we've done is just not increased it for a few years until the next project comes up. And again, it is unfortunate because the state does not build academic facilities except once every few years. And actually every decade or so. And the latest trend has been to give you your capital funds in 2-year increments. So we had sought $5 million for the fine arts building, And the word is we'll get 2.5 this year and 2.5 next year. So not only have the amounts gotten lower, but they're kind of spread out, so.
And then, do you have any idea, maybe paint a pretty vague picture of what the history of these increases have been like for facilities fees in the last 10 years or so? Like, what was it last year? What was it?
Yes, last year we didn't increase it because we really didn't have we had a plan in place, we just didn't have the assurance of the private funds, or a pretty solid assurance. And then it was increased the year before that, and I know we increased it in preparation for the Kobe building, and we were able to make that match. And so it tends to be around those. But the fee started in 2006, and it was tied to our master plan. So since 2006, that's the amount it's gone up to, the current $260 for full-time. In states where you see that the state does provide state funding for facilities and buildings, generally that fee wouldn't be as high, although it might be for the auxiliary buildings like student services and those types of things. Ours, unfortunately, also has to fund academic buildings.
Seeing no more questions, thank you very much, Stacy. Next, we are going to discuss the technology fee, and Max Davis Johnson, our Associate Vice President for Information Technology and CIO, is making his way to us.
I thought I wouldn't have put on my glasses, but the sea is down. So, hi, I'm Max Davis Johnson. I'm the Associate Vice President for Information Technology and CIO here at Boise State. I might have a hard time staying behind the podium here, but I'll try. So what we are asking for is a $10 increase for full-time students. And you can sort of see some of the projections for it. This $10 increase per semester. But and potentially because of enrollment projections too, and a lot of the student fees are based on enrollment projections. Because we're projecting a little bit of a drop in enrollment, we've got a range potentially of what we're looking at here for an actual increase for that. What we're talking about the technology fee, using it for, is to expand our classroom support efforts, our standardization of classrooms across campus. And also, too, as certainly as everybody's aware, our reliance on the network and the infrastructure on there is continually expanding, and certainly using some of the fees that help us in this area. So just a quick overview where we're at with our current classroom situation. We have about 240 plus spaces here on campus where we actually schedule for instruction. And 140 of those are your traditional lecture type classrooms, and they range in anywhere from, say, a classroom that supports 20 to lecture halls that support hundreds across campus. We also have 14 computer classrooms, and then we have about what we call 80 special purpose classrooms. And these range from in the music facility, practice rooms, fine art rooms, science labs certainly fall into this category. And all the rooms have different types of needs as far as technology. Out of all these teaching spaces, we have 102 which are actually centrally managed. And when I say centrally managed, they're supported by basically Office of Information Technology. And so what that means, they have a standard level of technology in that room. They have similar controls. They have the projection equipment, the classroom computer, the document imaging, the document projection devices that we have. It also means that in that room we have, the idea is we have enough wireless capacity so that if every seat had a device, that there's enough capacity in that room to connect. And so the idea also behind those two is that these classrooms, we come in, we inspect them regularly. We communicate to faculty that are teaching in these classrooms. These are the features in this classroom. And the idea is that as you move from classroom to classroom within this set, you're going to see the same technology in that classroom. Another thing we certainly do there too is since we manage these classrooms, and the fact that if any of the classrooms, any of these teaching spaces have a problem, they certainly can call the classroom hotline, and we will dispatch people to come out to support them. But if it's not one of our non-central classrooms, sometimes our ability to respond quickly is certainly challenged as we move forward. But I think the idea here is, and we're starting in 2012 here, working the other way, a little bit backward here. But as you can see, before we started centrally managing classrooms, we averaged about almost 800 incidents calls a month throughout the semester. And as we started to centrally manage these, communicate, get a standard level of technology to that, we've been able to reduce the incidents to about 100 a month, where we have to go out and respond to classroom issues. And so the intent here would be to expand that classroom base of 100 plus, a little bit over 100 classrooms, to start expanding that to the additional spaces that we do teach at. Obviously, the funding provided here won't get us all the way there, and we'll have to look at other university sources to do that. And it's just not technology, certainly, where we need to do classroom work, but facilities and all across the board. But it gets us started, and it gives us a little bit more ability to start standardizing and getting a level set of technology across campus. Another area, too, certainly, where we would certainly use these funds going forward would be in the area of networking. And without going into a lot of detail, the networking is becoming core to what we do here at Boise State. It connects us, from a technology standpoint, it connects us from a social standpoint. Certainly, as Boise State evolves from a system standpoint, you will see us. It's not a question of if we go to the cloud; it's more of a question of when. And having a strong, robust network allowing us to do that is key to us, our ability to do that. We have a lot of network challenges. Boise State has made a very strong investment in networking infrastructure over the last 3-4 years. Unfortunately, we need to continue to make that investment. And then we also have to think all that equipment that we've been buying, there's a life cycle of that, and we have to start thinking about how we're going to replace that. And again, needs change, more and more networking requirements. So again, we have to figure out ways to stay on top of this and not only fund it, but also use it as efficiently and effectively as we can. So the intent here then would be to help offset some of our needs here. Another way to look at it, these are projections going out for a number of years. We do have various sources to fund the network. We do have revenue that comes from telephone costs, but as more and more people across campus start relying on their own cell phones, less and less on their office phones, we are seeing a decrease in quote-unquote what we call telephone revenue. That's just a piece of how we fund the network. At the same time as we project our network costs over the next 3 or 4 years with growth and replacement, you can see that our costs are going to continue to grow. And the intent here is certainly not to have student fees cover this burden, but just help a little bit with this as we move forward. So just to give you a little bit of a flavor for what we've done with tech fees over the last 2 years, and again, this is a representative sample, but we've been able to expand our customer support and services for students. We have zones scattered across campus, walk-in support. We have we have expanded our help desk to support students. We've expanded lab computers, not only the number of computers, but locations all across campus. In most of the major classroom buildings now, we have various areas set aside where there's lab computers, print stations where students can get on, print things they need, get on, do their work, whatever they need to do. We have literally tripled the bandwidth coming into campus, from the internet, and the number of wireless access nodes that are now available across campus. And again, we continually monitor that. If we reach start to reach capacity, we'll increase bandwidth. We have various places across campus, student areas where the students bring more and more devices. Not only are they connecting one device, a lot of times they're connecting 2 or 3 devices all at the same time. And so we have to continue to build that capacity. And we recognize that we'll be adding various access nodes across campus as needed. We've upgraded over 100 classrooms across campus, as we've talked about a little bit too. We have rolled out student-centric systems like e-advising smart planner that allow students to project not only their graduation requirements, where they're on track, but what if I want to change my major, how close I am to that next degree if I change that. Also, we use tech fees to support our basic core student systems like PeopleSoft Campus Solutions, like Blackboard. And so I think in general we make pretty effective use of our student fees. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, some of our peer institutions, these are the type of fees that you see across the board. I think one thing to pay attention to are the EDUCAUSE core data survey, the medium tech fee, and that's within our Carnegie classification. EDUCAUSE, if you're not familiar with that, is the National Higher Ed Technology Organization. They do a lot of research, a lot of surveying. You certainly can see that their trend is going up. Anyway, as you can see, we are a little bit on the lower range. You also notice Idaho State, U and U of I are less than we are right now from a student fee standpoint. But certainly, I think if you compare what we provide from a technology standpoint to our students, I think we compare very favorably there. Anyway, any questions? Yes, sir.
Comment and question.
Sure.
I appreciate you didn't raise the cost for part-time students because recognizing just the social standard happenstance that the full-time students are those that are here all the time using that, and the part-times typically come and go. So thank you. Two, my question is, I'm seeing like conflicting numbers, so maybe this is just a little bit me just being confused, but on the thing that was emailed to us, that a couple of my neighbors have printed, it says we are raising it from $92.78, which is what it is now, to $99.25, but then it says there's a $10 increase, whereas on here it says that it's $92.75, and there'd be a $10 increase to $102.75.
And I've got one that says current full-time fee of $99.25, raising it by $10 to $109.25.
Yes. So what is it right now, and what are we raising
Help.
to?
That's a good question. We're raising it $10, and so I think my impression was $92.75. We're raising that to $102.75. But yeah,
I was confused too.
no, I confuse either. I'll admit.
So maybe that's something that is this the more formal document that's submitted? Might this need to be edited, or?
Karen's looking it up.
I'm looking for it.
I do notice, are you talking about this handout? Because that has the FY14 fee as $92.75, and we're in FY15, which I believe is,
It's $99.25.
That's a FY15.
So presently it is 99.
yes, presently it's
yes, thank you.
$99.25.
Okay.
So again, it is going to then go to $109.75.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for catching that.
So last year it was $92.75, proposed $10 increase, but it was only raised $7 of that $10. That's right.
Yeah, wasn't it?
Yes,
Actually,
that-
well,
I think that's the case.
I
Last
think
year,
actually last year it was proposed 5, and it was actually 7, is what we were, anyway.
Oh, okay.
We got more than we proposed.
So the only
I do
real
remember
mistake
that, yes. And it is 99 now that I
this,
think about
okay.
it. That was my bad on this, because I was,
Okay.
Last year, I think we decreased the part-time and
Right.
increased
Right,
the
yes,
full-time.
yes, 'cause
Yeah.
we did ask for a part-time, yes, yes, we did, 20 cents, yes.
Other questions for Max?
No, but thank you for catching
I still think if this is indeed like a formal document that's referred to, this needs to be changed though.
Which,
Just to clarify.
which document?
The one that.
This is correct now.
This is correct. What's in your
Oh, okay.
book
So
is
it
correct.
Right.
Sorry. Sorry.
It's all right.
I was doing this at 5 o'clock in the morning, so no excuse, but.
If there are no other questions, thank you, Max.
Thank you.
Next, we will ask our Director of Athletics, Mark Coyle, to come forward. And for those of you following along in our book, he is going to be making a presentation both on intercollegiate athletics and the Spirit Squad together.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. And as Dr. Harris said, my name is Mark Coyle. I'm the Director of Athletics, starting my 4th year here at Boise State, and have had a chance to come before this group in the past to talk about how important the student fee impacts our 420 student athletes that compete for us in 20 sports. And a lot of times you hear how athletics is the front porch of the institution. And this past year when we were in the Fiesta Bowl, I was made aware of a stat that Boise State University was trending 8th worldwide during the Fiesta Bowl when we ran the Statue of Liberty play. So if you talk about the exposure and the publicity we generate from our football program alone, it's an awesome thing, and I hope our students know how much they have an impact on our 420 kids, as I talked about before. And as I talk, you know, everyone knows about our football success, but I want to make sure I take a second to talk about the success. If you look at our men's and women's basketball teams right now, both of those teams are in 3rd place in the Mountain West Conference. Our gymnastics team is ranked 12th in the country. We just beat Ohio State this past weekend, compete against Alabama the weekend before, who was ranked 6th in the country. Our women's outdoor track and field team finished 8th in the country last year. We finished behind 7 SEC schools. And why that's important, our athletic department budget is $37 million. In the SEC, those athletic department budgets over $100 million. So you can tell the difference that we're competing against from that standpoint. And this past fall, our cross-country team on the women's side finished 11th in the country. So again, we're very proud of what we do athletically, but at the same time, we're also very proud of what we do academically. You know, this past semester, over 75% of our kids had a 3.0 or higher grade point average. We had 40 student athletes that had a perfect 4.0. And how that impacts us with respect to the student fees, currently we generate about $3.4 million from our students. And our current full-time student at Boise State pays $113.10. Our goal is to ask for a $3 increase for next fiscal year. On the part-time side, part-time students are paying $10.75. And again, we'd like to ask for a 50% adjustment to that. And the primary reason that we're looking at these adjustments are for two. First, last week the state board made a change to SHIP. And what SHIP is insurance at all student athletes. At Boise State, there's about 2,700 students, I think, that were involved with SHIP. I look at Stacy to make sure, I think it's around 2,700 students were involved with SHIP, or at least in that range. Of that 2,700, about 322 were student athletes. And what's important about that is, with SHIP going away and changing, it's going to impact athletics by about $500,000. And what I mean by that, when we go out and we recruit student athletes to come compete for us, so if we go in and we recruit a gymnast, or we recruit a women's basketball player, we recruit a football player, one of the very first questions our coaches get is, what happens if my daughter gets hurt, or what happens if my son gets hurt? And for us, we want to be able to tell the story that if your daughter or your son get hurt while they're competing for Boise State, we'll be able to cover that medical expenses for you through our insurance, through our SHIP program. So again, that's going to be an adjustment for our budget to take on that additional $500,000. We already spend about $1.1 million on insurance, so this will be an additional $500,000. And the second thing that we would look for the student fee to go towards is our Title IX and gender equity. This past spring, or a year ago this spring, I'm sorry, we brought in a company called Good Sports. They're based out of San Diego. They're the leading consultant for gender equity and Title IX issues. And they're very complimentary of what we're doing at Boise State for our female student athletes. One area that came up over and over again, though, was our lack of facilities for our women's teams. And if you have a chance to come to our facilities and you look at the locker room space, the practice space for our women's teams, we have a lot of room to grow from that standpoint. So again, our goal is to take this adjustment and apply that towards our women's sports and help them with some of our Title IX and gender equity needs from that standpoint. So with that, that is the athletics side. So I will open it up for questions or comments. Yes.
You had an increase in fees of $3 from last year, if I'm correct. Can you explain what those $3 per student went for?
A lot of it goes to, and I'm not sure what the final number was finally approved, but a lot of that money, again, will go towards our, again, we have 20 sports here. 12 of them are women's sports, and so we put a lot of that stuff into this past year into our gender equity improvements for, again, our women's sports. We did new locker rooms for our women's and swimming and diving team. We did new locker rooms for our women's track and field team from that standpoint. And what we'd like to do with the new proposed increase for student fees would be to look at our soccer facility for our women's team, to upgrade their locker room, lights at the facility, and then we need to address locker room needs for volleyball. And then also, we play our volleyball games in Bronco Gym, about a new surface, a new floor for Bronco Gym. Yes.
Can you expand more about what the shift change is you mentioned? So is it that athletes are going to have to take on shift, or are you going to take on shift for them?
We will take on shift for them, yes, exactly. So what we'll do, again, it's very important when we're recruiting a young man or a young woman to be able to, again, if you're hurt while you're competing for us, we want to be able to tell you that we'll be your primary insurance and we will help you through that standpoint. And so again, with the change in shift this past, with the state board, voted on last week, again, that's about a $500,000 impact, and we were anticipating that change in conversations with Stacy and others.
So what was the previous policy then? So what was, they were covered under a different insurance policy than shift?
No, SHIP covered all of us, but now we're going to have to go out to like Mutual of Omaha and outside carriers for that insurance from that standpoint.
Other questions on athletic fee increase? Proceed.
Okay, on the Spirit Squad side, when I got here, I came here 3 years ago from the University of Kentucky, and background on cheerleading and dance teams. The University of Kentucky, I think, won 17 straight national championships in cheerleading and dance, and they were a very successful program. And when I got here, our Spirit Squad and our dance team were almost outside of athletics. And I had a chance to visit with President Custer and our management team about incorporating them more inside the athletic department. So we worked incredibly hard to provide them benefits and to treat them like our student athletes and to make sure they feel part of our department and that they have a home with us. And currently, full-time students pay $6.50 for a student fee for our Spirit Squad, and part-time students pay 50 cents. And we're asking for a $2 adjustment for our full-time students and a 50-cent adjustment for our part-time students. We also have a summer fee where students pay 20 cents, and we're going to keep that flat at 20 cents from that standpoint. And perhaps one of the best compliments I got from the Fiesta Bowl, I was on an athletics committee call, which is part of the State Board of Education, and one of the board members made a comment that the biggest difference between the 2007 and 2010 and the 2014 Fiesta Bowl was our Spirit Squad and our dance team and our band. I know Joe's back here from that standpoint. I know Joe works really hard with our band, but it brought me great pride to see that people are recognizing that our band is making great strides underneath Joe's leadership, but at the same time, our Spirit Squad and our dance team received due recognition from that standpoint. And our head coach, Tolbert Blaine, has done a phenomenal job with those young men and ladies to represent our program. And I can't tell you how many events they do throughout the Treasure Valley where they represent us. They represent Boise State. I see Laura. I know they do stuff for our foundation and for development from that standpoint. They do stuff with a lot of our colleges. And again, a lot of times we're the front porch of the institution. Again, our goal is to increase those fees so we can continue to provide our dance team and our Spirit Squad members with the things they need to continue to grow that program in a positive manner.
Any questions?
Yes.
Looking at your proposed increase, it looks like a roughly 30% increase, and that seems awfully large. Can you explain your outlook and plan for the next few years to come?
Yeah, part of the reason it's large is we've gotten very aggressive with our drug testing for all of our student athletes. And when I made the comment at the start of this about we want to make sure we treat our Spirit Squad and our dance team members like student athletes, they're now part of our drug testing policy with all of our student athletes from that standpoint. And so there's an expense with that. We outsource that to a company out of Kansas City who handles all the NCAA drug testing from that standpoint, so that's very important to us. And second, we have a chance where we practice and so forth is over with the band in Stein Hall in that area, and that's a great area, but we continue to try to get new uniforms. A lot of our sports teams, we have a wonderful agreement with Nike that provides apparel for all of our teams. Our Spirit Squad and dance team aren't part of that apparel agreement, so a lot of it goes towards that stuff to get them more fully integrated with what we're trying to do with all of our sports.
And just out of curiosity, because I don't know anything about it, how big of a problem is that kind of stuff in like Spirit Squad, like drugs, and how big of a problem is that nationally, locally?
I can't speak to nationally. I can tell you at Boise State we've had 0 incidents with our Spirit Squad or dance team on drug testing.
Is that like an increasing trend as we progress into the future?
To test people?
Yeah.
It's a priority for us. You know, we obviously take great pride in how we do things, and you know, I can tell you when I'm at Mountain West Conference meetings and all the schools, the 12 athletic directors and the 12 presidents, when we're together with our presidents, when we talk about how we're competing, you know, we obviously want to make sure that we compete in a first-class manner all the time. Obviously, Boise State wants to do that, but we also want all of our peers to do that in the conference from that standpoint. So I do think you see more schools and more institutions being aggressive with how we test our student athletes from that standpoint, no doubt. Yes.
Why a part-time student increase? I guess it's just a very broad question, more out of ignorance.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. You know, obviously when we provide tickets to our students for football games, basketball games, and so forth, that goes across all elements. So it's not a full-time or part-time student for that. So we'd like to include everybody together from that standpoint, that they have the same opportunities to attend our events from that.
Oh, even someone taking 3 credits.
That is my understanding. That
Didn't know that.
yeah, if you're yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Thank you.
I think, yeah, maybe if
sorry.
you want to stay up there. Sorry, I just raised my hand. If you're looking through your worksheets, we actually have an error in that on the athletics, not the Spirit Squad, but the athletics, it says a $3 versus a $6 increase for the $3 versus a $6.50. That's why the numbers go negative. I was concerned about that, so we'll correct that. It's still the amount that you requested.
A $3 increase.
But
yeah.
when you look through our worksheets, or at least the version I have, we put in the wrong number, so it's showing a deficit from the fee increase, but that's not what we're intending here. So we'll get those numbers corrected for the Executive Budget Committee meeting.
Thank you, Stacy, for pointing that out. Thanks again, Mark. So next on our agenda, we have campus recreation. So our Director of Campus Recreation, Luke Jones, we will invite to come forward.
Well, good afternoon. As you heard, my name is Luke Jones, and I'm the new Director of Campus Recreation as of about, I guess this is week number 6 for me. So thank you for letting me come and speak to you today. I fundamentally believe that campus recreation has an important role to play in the retention of our students, in building the community here at Boise State, and serving as a platform for experiential learning. And so last year, Campus Recreation was here asking you for $6 of $12 that was needed overall. This committee granted those $6. I want to say thank you. And we said we would be back, and we're back. In fiscal year 14, you can see the numbers here. Our turnstiles into our building turned almost 367,000 times, serving 8,362 unique full-time students, which represents about 64% of our full-time student body. So we're reaching a lot of students, and we hope to reach more. Since Boise State started recruiting a more traditional student population, we'll say, we've seen overall increases in our programs. And so I won't go through the numbers there, but you can see them in your handouts as well. So we've seen more students accessing both our facilities and our programs and services, and we want to continue to see that grow. But I want to rewind really quick and just kind of give a little bit of historical budget context to our conversation. The original budget for campus recreation was based on collecting two fees. One was a rec activity fee, which was at the time $26 each term, and then another fee, the facilities fee at that time of $65 a term. And we had a little reserve fund as well that we were working with. And so you can see kind of on the top line there, any year that has a plus was a year that we at least broke even or had some net gain. And then the years in orange-ish, we ran a deficit. And when the university centralized that facility fee, there were some years where we received an amount from that central fund in FY 04, 05, 07, and 10, which helped to offset some of that deficit budgeting. And as the department, the Division of Student Affairs in fiscal year 11 took a look at this budgeting, they recognized this is really not sustainable. We'd worked through that reserve and so stopped budgeting at a deficit, and that's why you see a change there. And we also don't expect any revenue from that centralized facility fee fund anymore. And so we're on a quest to develop a sustainable budgeting cycle and amount that works to sustain the current programming and facilities, as well as the current services and programs that we offer through campus recreation. And that's what today's about. So we're asking for the other $6 that we talked about last time we were here for full-time students, and we're talking about a 60-cent raise for part-time students. I want to give you just a sense kind of breakdown from our own revenue standpoint. Right now, our budget of about $2.6 million, 66% of that comes from student fees, and we've got another good chunk of our revenue picture that includes non-student memberships, sales and service of various things that we offer within campus recreation, and then facility rentals. And so we're really dialed into trying to make the most of these different revenue buckets. Our goal is not to get to 80% reliance on student funds, but we do want to build a sustainable structure where we can start to leverage some of these other areas and really build those out. And I thought it might be helpful just to see how we compare to some of our Northwest peers, who you can see somewhere at Portland State, 88% of their budget comes from student fees, Oregon State 75, UVI 72, and Boise State 63. So while we're here wanting to build a sustainable model, we're also proud that we do a lot with what we have, and that we feel like we're being good stewards of students' money by looking for other areas that we can capitalize on other revenue opportunities. And just quickly to highlight that non-student membership revenue, we have generally increased that about 4% over the last few years. And last year, we made some rate increases to those non-student memberships as well as to some other areas. And so net, from 12 to 15, we expect that to have increased about $43,000. And we want to do more there. So that's kind of the plan. We're focused on a lot of these different areas, but that alone won't be enough to get us where we need to be, which I'll talk about here in a second. And the other thing, too, to highlight is even with an increase, campus recreation in terms of what it costs to go for students, for faculty, and our alumni, when you compare us to like facilities, is a really great value. We're, right now a little over $11 a month for a student, a little over $20 for faculty and staff, and just under $30 for our alumni. So I just thought that might be helpful just to kind of put it into perspective here in terms of what we cost and what we provide. And we're not just looking at fees to obtain this sustainable model. We've also, in FY12 and 13, reduced some full-time staff. We've reorganized our student staffing model. We eliminated a pretty big program, a rec response program that saved some money in terms of its presence within the facility itself and what we were doing with that program. And then we continue to implement the recommendations from an audit to make sure that we're running efficiently. And as I mentioned, we increased some of our rates for rental and membership, as well as secured $6 of funding from you all last year. And so that's helping us get down the path of sustainability. But we need this additional $6 to address what amounts to about $355,000 a year that's needed for us to be able to plan into the future. Right now, we're using our non-student membership fees are also going to help build our programs that we offer to students. And as we look down the road, that revenue will have to be shifted over to start investing in capital replacements to things like our turf field and our roof and some basic nuts and bolts stuff for us, which I'll cover here in detail in a second. It's in your handout. But that's kind of the amount that we're looking to cover right now to make sure that we can just continue to offer what it is we do without having that be impacted. So if we're not able to get that, that's kind of the decisions that we'll have to make. Here's the accrual, some of the things that we're long-term looking down and saying we need to plan for replacing our turf. We've got to plan for our roof. We've got some AC and heating things that are going to need to be attended to. We've got some expensive equipment, some flooring that needs to be replaced. So this is kind of the worksheet we've looked at and developed to help us plan so that when it comes time to do these pretty major investments, we're not scrambling to figure out how we're going to come up with the funds for it. Like I mentioned, as we divert funds, if that's what we have to do from other revenue sources to cover that investment, we look to some tough choices. But the things that would be available to us would be to cut our fitness programming, eliminate outdoor recreation programs, eliminate some graduate staff, which, once we account for probably some lost sales and revenue coming out of those areas, nets us some money. But those are things that we would like not to have to cut because we really believe that they're vital to the student experience. And so I just wanted to end on a story just to kind of bring that to life a little bit. Our outdoor programs ran a trip and took a group of students to the Grand Canyon over winter break. And Rhoda, who runs that program, had all the students write in a journal kind of thoughts and reflections about that trip. So I had the ability to take a look at that. And one of these quotes that a student wrote really stuck out to me. And so I just thought I'd read it really quick. But she said, "I have not felt that connected with a group and myself in a very long time. We all have our personal backgrounds, and it's so amazing that we have the capability to set our differences aside and become unified in life's experiences. Why don't people do this more often in this hectic life?" And so that's really why we do what we do at REC, is to provide students those types of opportunities that really have impact in their growth as leaders and citizens and as students. So I'll stop there and thank you and open it up for questions.
You may have questions in a minute, so you may want to step aside, but we have a student who also wants to speak on behalf of this, so Luke will give you the opportunity to come back in a minute if somebody has a question. But Brian Garrettson has asked to speak, and we actually told him he could.
I appreciate that, Harris. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. My name is Brian Garrettson, originally from Cranford, New Jersey. I'm now a junior here, studying entrepreneurship management and communication. I'm here today to talk about my experience with the Campus Rec Center. Since my freshman year, I would consider myself to be an avid user of the Rec Center. Though I'm clearly no bodybuilder, I quickly realized that my school performance increased and my excess stress level definitely reduced the more and more I went to the Rec Center. As someone who participates in a wide variety of student life involvement, I started going early in the morning before all the classes and meetings, which does in fact make the day so much better. However, aside from being a typical gym goer, I've utilized the rec center in the not-so-average ways. As a tour guide for Boise State admissions, I've come to the conclusion that the rec center is one, if not the high point of the campus tour. Prospective students and parents alike are elated by the quality of equipment, the uniqueness of our outdoors program, and of course, the rock wall. Their comments reflect excitement and almost shock when they see truly how many students are using the facility in so many different ways. Additionally, as a returning member of Boise State's Dance Marathon Executive Board, I've developed a strong and flexible partnership with the rec center. So as the rec center gets ready to host our third event this year, this Friday, February 27th, we will dance for 17 hours straight in hopes of reaching our goal of $45,000, all towards our local St. Luke's Children's Hospital. However, this is something that the rec has helped to provide and serve us in any way they possibly can. Working with them has been a privilege and inspiring experience, knowing their level of dedication to elevating the student experience. This incredible event that requires an immense amount of planning, communicating, and collaborative efforts truly could not happen without the Campus Rec Center. This facility is also home to Relay for Life, various intramural sports and tournaments, which remain heavily populated, and an accommodating rental shop that is not only cost-effective for students, but has everything you want and need to enjoy Idaho's outdoor playground. The staff, student, and professional alike are both friendly, informative, and accommodating. Their eagerness to hear from student opinion is seemingly contagious as their Feedback February program started to go viral. As a student, I assure and protest that the Student Campus Rec Center is vital for enhancing the student experience both in and outside of the classroom. Thank you. And I don't know if I could take questions, but if you have any, I will take some.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
So are there any questions for Luke or for Brian on Campus Rec? Thank you both very much.
Have a great day.
And before you stand up, Richard, I know you can't wait, but we're going to take a 10-minute break.
I'll go over my line.
Everyone, please feel free to enjoy the refreshment. Okay, I think we're going to start again.
Could you state that in the mic so we can get it on the record?
And next, we have our Department Chair in Theater Arts, Richard Klaus. We would miss this if you didn't come every year, Richard.
Thank you. I will. Has the clock started? I never know when it starts. And is this streaming? I have to call my agent. Greetings. I am Richard Clouch, Chair of the Department of Theater Arts. Thank you all for considering our request for an increase in the amount of student activity fees we receive for our theater production program. I was last before this committee, as many of you will remember, 3 years ago, requesting the first fee increase for theater arts in 19 years. I requested a 50-cent increase to our annual fee revenue from full-time enrollments, $1.50 to $2, to help cover our rising production costs. This committee approved that request, for which I am still grateful. And during that next year, 2012-13, that increase put us right on track. It may seem odd to have gone so long without an increase request, but we have always tried very hard to keep our costs to students low as possible. We operate conservatively and carefully because we have to. We're a medium-sized program with 2 degrees. And enrollment increases at Boise State over the last 20 years have also helped us maintain a workable, if not always abundant, production budget. Our activity fee revenues go directly into our local production support account. We produce 4 main stage shows a year, primarily in the Danny Peterson Theater, but also in the Spec and the Morrison Center Main Hall. Fee revenues pay for our scenery, costumes, props, lighting, electrics, basically all of our technical needs. A partial list includes hardware, lumber, paint, steel, fabrics, tools, wigs, dyes, sewing machines, and sergers, cables, lamps, gels, connectors, basic equipment replacement and maintenance, and specialty items that must be rented from outside companies such as lighting trusses, high-density foggers, high-powered projectors, and swords. Yes, that's swords. These funds must also help cover the additional production costs related to our annual participation in the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival, and contingency costs, unexpected production needs that arise once the academic year has begun. Fee revenues from this account also pay for a temporary classified staff member who serves as a production technical manager and master electrician overseeing student crews. The benefits of this support are obvious for our 100 theater arts majors and other majors who are involved in performing roles or serving on running crews or performing in the orchestras for our musicals and operas. However, this support also touches many, many more students across campus. In return for the fees that we receive, every full-time student at Boise State receives a complimentary advance ticket to each one of our productions, regardless of the venue in which we perform. Over the last 5 years, we have performed for a total of 11,681 students, or an average of 1,300 students per semester, or 55% of our total audience during that time. Our productions are always available to serve many other disciplines and classes across campus as a dynamic method of studying such topics as literature, history, philosophy, the social sciences, and even mathematics and the natural sciences. We produce a range of plays that many professional theaters find daunting, if not impossible. From the Greek classics to Shakespeare to more contemporary European masters such as Beckett, Coward, Churchill, and Stoppard, to the American classics of Williams and Kaufman, to the great musicals by Rodgers and Hammerstein and Sondheim, to original plays written by students and faculty. In addition, our production program is open to any student across campus, regardless of major or class rank. They may participate in a production. In fact, right now I'm directing Little Women, the Broadway musical, opens March 5th, runs March 5th through March 8th. That's Little Women, the Broadway musical, in the Morrison Center main hall. 2 of the leading roles in that production are played by a biology and nursing major, respectively. Getting back to the numbers, from the fall of 2010 through the spring of 2014, we received an average of $40,500 in student fees per academic year. During that same time frame, we earned an average annually of $19,300 in ticket sales. Ticket revenue fluctuates wildly for us depending on the revenue, or the venue rather, that we're in, and the number of performances we have, as well as the number of seats. So when we perform in the Peterson Theater, we usually have about 140 seats, and when we perform in the Morrison Center, we have 1,000 seats at our disposal. Between FY11 and FY14, our revenue per year average, based on the combination, our total revenue, combination of fees, ticket sales, program ad sales, and equipment and space rentals we make to other agencies, was $65,400. We spent an average $74,600 per year during that same time frame just to meet our already scaled back expenses. Within the last 10 years, we've seen our per production costs go up dramatically. Excuse the pun. This is the result of increases in material and equipment costs, everything from lumber to fabric to hardware to paint, royalties, and rental charges we incur. 3 years ago, I reported to this committee that between the fall of '02 and the spring of '07, the average cost of one of our productions was $5,800. Between '07 and '12, our average per production costs rose to $7,200. In the last 3 years, we have seen production costs rise to $7,500. We have taken and continue to take every measure to address the rising costs, producing fewer shows or one very small show in a season, cutting to the bone every scenic and costume necessity, or finding ways simply to create with less, finding sponsorships with companies willing to donate materials or to sell materials to us at cost, raising prices on our general admission and discounted tickets for community members, maintaining reciprocal relationships with the Idaho Shakespeare Festival and Boise Contemporary Theater, by which we borrow props and furniture and even shop space when needed, and making operational choices that ease our production demands when possible. As was the case 3 years ago, our goal is still to be able to increase our production budget by $10,000 to $15,000 per year an increase that will sustain our current production program successfully for at least the next 5 to 7 years and help protect us from unforeseen influences. The year after we received our 50-cent increase in fees, 2012 to 13, the university adjusted its plateau of the fee structure, moving the definition of full-time enrollment from 12 credits to 13 credits. That resulted in a loss to us in fee revenues of almost $14,000 last year. The amount of fee revenue we received this year is $17,000 below what we received from our increase 2 years ago. The lowest amount we have received in 13 years. As I've been asked many times in the last year and a half, why don't you earn fees from part-time students? The time has come. We are requesting for the first time activity fee revenue from part-time students to help us meet our needs and goals. Despite our policy of providing complimentary tickets only for full-time students, part-time students can receive a free ticket simply by showing a current Boise State ID. The Morrison Center box office doesn't check. Now, this is going to sound terrible, but you know, our data shows that part-time students make up 5% of our total ticket sales. Now, those are the tickets that are given to students who identify themselves as part-time students at the box office. Not all of them do. And it's not they're trying to put a fast one on us. It's just that they don't feel that they have to identify themselves. They simply show their IDs and they get a complimentary ticket. So if they're receiving the same benefits from us as full-time students do, it's only fair to ask them to help support our program. 20 cents per credit hour for which they register. That means they get a free ticket to every one of our productions. Right now, our current discounted price is $12. So that 20 cents per credit per semester pays for $24 in tickets to our shows. I understand not every part-time student will come see our show, but I hope to change that very soon. 3 years ago, I said to this committee, please know that it's also my profound hope that we do not have to appear before this committee again for another 19 years. Sorry, you guys. Let me amend that to, it's my hope that you'll not see me again for another 5 to 7 years. I'll change that. Thanks again for your efforts, your consideration, and your attention. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir.
So it sounds like one of the biggest issues was when the fee plateau changed, the unintended consequences, what happened to the revenue that you had in that?
I was told at the time, Kevin, that there were 3 units or entities on campus that only received full-time credits. We were one of them. And I was a little taken aback by how that shift, what that shift did to our overall fee revenue. Now, I understand only from what I've heard, that things are going to continue changing, but they might change in terms of helping that next year. But I don't know. As Stacy, you said earlier, that plateau may change again to 14 credits and so forth. So a part of this request for an increase, which right now is projected to bring us about another $21,000 or $22,000 a year, is not only to make up for the money that we're losing from that shift, but also to help protect us over the next few years.
Is the plan then to formalize the part-time student and get one without being asked to self-disclosing?
Absolutely. Our issue, like I said right now, because of our resources, we just started this year. I know it sounds like we're ancient, but we just started this year taking credit cards in the Morrison Center for our own at-the-door ticket sales, because now you can just attach them to an iPhone, I guess, and they have these little credit card things. It's amazing. I know I sound like, yeah, they've been around a long time, Richard. But there's still no way for us, given the resources we have in the Morrison Center, to be able to validate whether a student is part-time or full-time. And then, of course, I realized, too, we've never really enforced it. I mean, it's not like something we've gone after actively until now to get the fees because of these other shifts that we're seeing. So our policy will be to simply say every student at Boise State gets a complimentary ticket to every one of our shows. Little Women, the Broadway musical, March 5th.
Well, I know it's probably somewhat fair to say that every group that's coming to ask for a fee this time around, but I think your group does more with what you get than everybody else.
I appreciate that, Kevin. I would only say in response to that, Blaine and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. Being a theater program certainly gives us a lot of versatility and a lot of ways of working around issues. I don't want to emphasize this too much because I don't want anyone to get ideas, but we can create theater out of a podium and a video screen. but you know, we certainly don't want to do that because all of the concerns, especially about student fee increases, you know, it's a major issue today, as you all know. That's nothing new whatsoever. But we always have to try to remember to balance what we need in terms of learning outcomes and learning experiences for our students and to be able to provide the best of those that we can. And we can't do that sometimes without support. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
Quick note, maybe, I don't know.
David asked, I do remember 3 years ago, David asked the last question of this committee. He asked me why I didn't ask for more of an increase. Boy, that comes around, doesn't it?
Better remember than I do.
Yeah.
The 20-cent increase added on or this new fee to part-time students with the plateau level. It means that they go up to the full limit of the linear, that they'll be paying more than the full-time students are. This is just making notice.
Yeah, observation about it.
Yes, can I answer that? We recognize that over the years, we have to adjust the total full and part-time fee, so we try to go through the individual fees and adjust those. But we did stop short of giving you a part-time fee when it hadn't been asked for, but we did help out, I think, to
You did,
manage
and I
that
will make that
difference.
clear that the first year that our fees dipped, I did put in a supplemental funding request that was approved and took care of that. And again, something I'm very grateful for. But I also realized I couldn't keep coming back each year to put in an SFR unless you tell me I can do that and I'll get the money that I asked for. But I don't think we're going to do that.
You can do that these days?
Yeah.
But we will adjust, and we'll talk to the committee about that, about the adjustments that we would need to make while not negatively impacting their revenues.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thanks all very
Thank you,
much.
Richard. We'd also like our director of bands to come forward, Joe Tornello, and talk about the marching band.
Good afternoon. As Mark Boyle said earlier, the Fiesta Bowl and folks that were associated with the organization down there were very impressed with what was going on with the Spirit Squad and the marching band and compared to what they had seen in 2010 and 2007. So something that I'm very excited about and very pleased with the progress that we're making. Much of that is due to the support that we've received from the university and from the student fee that comes to us that helps us operate and get us to the level and provide the support that we want for our students. We're still in a process of trying to get to that point, but we've made great strides in the last few years. Just to kind of recap what the band has done this past year, since August, the marching band, the full ensemble, has made 13 performances for 329,000 people and change. The pep bands, which perform at volleyball games, community events, both on campus, off campus, as well as basketball games, have performed over 43 times for 95,000 people. This does not include what we think will happen here in the next couple of weeks with Mountain West basketball tournaments, and hopefully keeping our fingers crossed, the NCAA tournaments. So this past year, our students have played for over 426,000 people. including the president, which we had the opportunity to play when Obama was here. And with all the weather and things that happened that we dealt with this fall, I told the band when we got started that we've had, we've done rain, we've done snow, we've done so cold that the instruments wouldn't even work. And we've done the president, so really the only thing left for us to do is play for the Pope. So it's been an exciting year for the band on many levels, including the increase, which I don't think Max is here, but we started using some new technology this year just with a few of our student leaders on the field. Probably you've seen Ohio State in articles on how they operate with it. Every student has an iPad on the field, and they can see the drill animate on their computer. It's something that we're looking to go towards that direction, but we're not at a position where we can buy 165 iPads at this point. So I'll try and talk to Max about that. But incorporating some technology is really exciting and allows them to be more efficient in our rehearsals so they can see what it's supposed to be instead of what we typically give them is a piece of paper and it shows the picture on there and their dots and that kind of thing. So something that will really help us kind of move into the next century and keep up with things as we progress forward. We are asking for a $1.50 increase for full-time students and 20 cents for part-time students. This money will be used to go for travel for the band as well as scholarships. We'd originally asked for the amount that would include money for instruments, but with the anticipated student reduction, incoming students, we're not even going to look at that. So we're just looking at trying to help support the band travel, which the university has helped us do that the last 2 years. However, with some of the college realignments, the dean has said he may or may not be able to help us out as he has the last 2 years with that. So we want to make sure that we are in a position to be able to make that continue to happen as it has the last 2 years. 2 years ago, the band went to Fresno State. This past year, the band went to UNR. In conjunction with that, we also performed at a high school exhibition. So playing for high schools in the area there as well as parents. It was a great opportunity for our students to take Boise State on the road and play it more than just a football game, which was great and one of our main goals, but also to expose students that, hey, there's also a great band at Boise State and a lot of great things academically going on as well. So we were excited about that. The scholarship funding, as I said, when the band started in 1987, students were awarded a $500 scholarship. Tuition at that point was $557. It was almost a full ride to be in the band. Now our base scholarship starts at $600 for incoming students, and obviously tuition is $6,000 and change. So we're not even in the ballpark with that, and I don't know if we'll ever get back to that point, but we'd definitely like to try and be able to support the students and what they're doing and not have to ask them to go and get part-time jobs to pay for students for their classes and that kind of thing, which students, I'm sure many of you have friends or you're doing that yourself. So our goal is in the future moving forward to try and increase our scholarships while we give students terrific opportunities both on campus and off campus. We've implemented a gradual increase for student scholarships. So the first year, if they come in and they're earning a $600 scholarship, the second year they would earn an $800 scholarship. The third year, $1,000, and the fourth year, $1,200 scholarship. Both to help with retention within the university, within the band program, to help grow the band, as well as just rewarding their dedication for the time that they put into the program. In the packet, I think you can see there the amount of time that students dedicate. If they play in every event, which not all of them do, but some of them do, they're dedicating 350 hours to performing and countless other hours practicing, rehearsal, taking care of things on their own time. So they do put in a lot of hours to serve the university in the many ways that we do. Again, I mentioned all the performances that we provide. The other thing that we're also trying to do is we've got a good start on retention. In relation to the university, we're at 84% retention from students' first year to the second year, which is about 10% higher than the university as a whole. And our goal is to have that same retention through their entire 4-year career or 5-year career, depends on their program. So that's another reason we're trying to help increase the scholarships, particularly at the third and fourth year, to help keep students moving through the program and being successful, not having to go work part-time, which I just heard the other day, Walmart's going to increase their minimum wage to $10 an hour. So when I look at what our students are getting per hour, it's pennies, and I certainly understand when a student says, I can't do it anymore, I have to work to be able to, make ends meet, pay for my apartment and tuition, et cetera. The other thing that I just want to update you on is our instrument situation. When I arrived 4 years ago, our instruments were, we had some, we didn't provide all of them, and we were getting closer. This past spring, we purchased trumpets for the trumpet section. We were able to get even a couple more than we expected because of us being Boise State, and the brand, the Bach, which is a terrific trumpet manufacturer, gave us a bit of a discount. So we were able to purchase trumpets, which you heard all this fall. And from directors, fans, alumni, the comments that we got throughout the fall were the band has never sounded this good. And I take great pride in that, in our students and what they've done and accomplished. And some of it, not all of it, is due in part to the increase in the quality of the instruments that the students are playing on. They're no longer playing on their beginning instrument that they bought in 6th grade and has been played on for 15 years. So we have 2 sections left to go. This year we're looking to buy as many saxophones as we can, and then the following year clarinets, and at that point we will have all the instruments for the band at roughly the current size of the band. This past spring we purchased the trumpets and then picked up a number of students over the summer, and much like Richard, had to put in a supplemental request for additional funding because we didn't have enough sousaphones and trombones and baritones to provide for the students. So we either had to tell them, sorry, we're full, or we were very fortunate that we got the money to be able to provide those instruments, and we have those now for students. So our instrument repair, originally when I started 4 years ago, we would just fix instruments when they broke. When a student came and said, hey, the valve doesn't go down, well, then we have to go get it fixed, which is very much like you not changing your oil in the car and waiting until it breaks down to go get the oil changed in your car. So we've changed that approach. As much as we'd like to get every instrument serviced every year, we're just not in a financial situation to do that. We've got a plan now for them to be maintained every 3rd year. Our goal down the road is for that to happen every other year, so that the instrument doesn't go more than 2 seasons without getting serviced and repaired, unless it's actually physically broken. So that's where we're at with our instruments. Under the Section 5 in your packet to travel, the band has traveled the last 2 years, as I said, to Fresno State and University of Nevada, Reno. We'd like to continue doing that, and a good bulk of the money that we would receive from this increase this year will go towards travel to supplement and replace the funding that we expect to lose from within our college and from the dean's support there. So those are the figures, the nuts and bolts of where we're at with the band. As I said before, I'm quite excited with where we're at and where we're moving. This year, while university numbers look to be down at this point, I anticipate our numbers to stay where they are or grow slightly. We've looked at the students that have auditioned for the music department. We just had those auditions this past weekend, and they are comparable to where they were last year. So we're hoping that then translates into students that are not going to be music majors and music minors, that they will just participate being a member of the band, not necessarily pursuing it as a degree of a sort. So we're excited about that, and hopefully that continues. And much of that recruiting, I think, has come because of the quality of the band and what they're doing. And students want to be a part of something good and a high quality, and I think we're doing that at this point. So much like Mark Coyle with the athletics, and they're very proud of what they're doing, we are as well, and obviously we're an integral part in those games and in the entertainment value that happens at virtually every game on campus. So that's my information for you. If there are questions I can answer at this point, I'd be happy to. Yes.
So you went to Fresno State and Nevada last year, right?
Correct.
I recall that. What would you say has been the impact on your recruiting? Has that, I know you've only done that now for a couple of years, but is that helping?
Yes. I think recruiting, I can speak from this year going to UNR. We've had 5 students that were at that competition that have applied to the university. They're getting WUIs. They're they're interested in being a part of the band. If we hadn't been down there, they wouldn't know about us. Other than the fact that Mr. Brown, the director of bands, and I have been to that area and spoken to the students, but much like this, I wish I could perform my request much like Richard, who is much more dynamic in his background. I wish I could perform it musically for you. So yes, we are seeing that, and particularly the camaraderie that comes with the students traveling together. If you're going to sit on a bus for 7 hours to go to Reno or 15 to get to Fresno, you develop some friendships and camaraderie that doesn't come for us, or hadn't come until bowl games, which is at the end of the season. At that point, we ride the bus and then come back, and some of the students don't see each other. So that camaraderie and family has increased for sure, and we're excited about that. I've really worked to create a family environment where they're comfortable being there. 2 years ago, my wife and I got a Bernese Mountain Dog, and he's kind of the band mascot. Last Sunday, my wife had a baby, and the band has been super excited about that. So the family environment and the support that the students are showing me, as well as what I try to show the students, is really exciting. So yes, the retention has been good. In 2013, the marching band was at 133 members. This past year, we were at 165. Any questions? Yes.
This is maybe more a question for Karen or Stacy, but I'm looking at your budget versus actual 3-year trend. Where are the scholarships in this? Oh, okay. And then, so as a follow-up to that, a quick question about figure 6.1 that you have here, which is in 2014, you have a scholarship increases of 27,466. And you may have said this in your presentation. Is that due to the increasing amounts for scholarships? So from 600 first year, 800 second year, 1,000 third, is that what that? Okay.
Yes.
Because you're only then increasing in 2015 by 8,800.
Right, and that's originally when we put in the request, we were requesting $27,000 in change total. So we're looking for $10,000 for scholarships, $10,000 for travel, and then $7,000 for instruments. So with what we were provided information, I guess a couple weeks ago, where our revenue based on student enrollment projections would be $17,000, we backed it down to that figure. So we also last year, Keith and Catherine Stein made a significant donation to the scholarship fund that's in our endowment, which was $500,000, which this year, looking at our figures, our scholarships will be up about $9,300, which translates to $56 a student. So while that was a huge chunk of money and the revenue that comes from that, when we look at how many students we're trying to service, while we're not nearly as large as the athletic department, the number of students that we're servicing is roughly basically a third with the budget that we have.
So then, again, still trying to get a sense of figure 6.1. So in 2017, you're anticipating an increase of 35,000.
That's what we'll be asking for.
That's what you'll be asking for.
Yes. So that as tuition increases and we can try and keep on track with students working and minimum wage and what we're expecting that's going to be. Yes, sir.
What's the estimated total cost of making a trip down to Fresno State, for example?
The last 2 years, both trips were between $60,000 and $65,000. Fresno was $65,000 with 135 people in the band. It's obviously a further travel, larger distance. This year we took 165 members of the band for $63,000. So basically the same price with the larger band. It's pretty comparable. Yes, sir.
That includes travel, food, lodging, everything?
Yes.
That's only about $500 per student for how many days?
We left on Friday after rehearsal. Left, got down there. Saturday morning, did an exhibition at McLean High School. Packed up, went over, did the football game that night, and then traveled back Sunday morning. So 3 days, 2 nights in a hotel.
Seems pretty cheap.
When you put it like that, yeah, but obviously $65,000 is a good chunk of money.
But for 135 people for 3 days for food, travel, lodging,
Yeah. Well, much like
only $500 a person.
much like a lot of the programs here, we're very frugal in what we do and how we do it. And Rebecca, my assistant, we work tremendously hard at trying to find the cheapest ways to make things happen. We provide the meals if we can, so that the students aren't just taking the money and pocketing it and that kind of thing. So, if we're in a situation where we can't stop somewhere and provide a meal, we give them the money. But we try to do it at the most reasonable price that we can.
Any other questions for Joe? Stacy?
Well, I would just say that the football team wasn't the only group that won the Fiesta Bowl, but the band, I thought, really outshone the University of Arizona. You did a wonderful job.
I appreciate it, and actually this year, and I'll say this and then I'll get out of here, but for the first time in what I can tell in the history of the program, we saw 4 bands, which is rare in this part of the country. I'm originally from Virginia, so going to an away game is a 2 or 3 hour thing, not 6 or 15. But we saw Fresno State in the championship game here. We saw UNR there. We saw somebody else. Maybe we only saw 3. And then the Arizona band at the Fiesta Bowl. And I told our students, and I don't try to make it competitive because that's not what it's about at the college level, but they have a lot to be proud of. And every bowl game that we've been to, whether it's Washington or Arizona State or Arizona, they all have bigger programs than us, but we have a lot to be proud of. And that's the way I just leave it at that. But what per student, what they're doing is by far superior to other schools that we've seen. So, thank you.
I love the lighted drums.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
That was a student that came and said, Joe, we should do this. So I looked at it, and it was a couple $1,000, and said, okay, but all the games are at night this year, so it's been very cool. In fact, we had a student here the other day, and I turned on the tuba light, and he's like, whoa. So it's another way to try and get a student here. So whatever works. So, thank you.
Thank you, Joe, very much. Next, we'll hear from our Director of our Career Center, Debbie Kaler.
No, I'm just eating all of the mints. I only have one left, so I'm saying Brian might need to take some from home.
We'll share.
I was half.
You have only half to get.
We want to see you have our minutes.
This is how I eat because tuition keeps going up.
We'll just wait.
Good, right?
We'll just wait for the air mark closing. Air mark's
Well, keep coming to these meetings, and you'll.
Right.
Eric, we may need you. Don't let him eat me my sugar. Stop him. Throw yourself on top of the wall.
Yeah, Lawrence.
say I was shocked that the rec center was the highlight of the campus tour. I really thought it was the academic and career services building personally. The rec center's cool and all, but well, anyways, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. My name is Debbie Kaler, and I am the director at the Career Center here at Boise State. I want to start off by bringing you all back to the fall semester and Dr. Custer's State of the University address. And during that address, he certainly talked about many important things. One of the things that stood out for me, obviously, was his focus on the employability of our graduates. And one of his quotes in his presentation was, "It is our intention to distinguish Boise State as a university that defines student success not only by graduation, but also by success in the gainful employment of our graduates as a result of their undergraduate preparation." So, I loved that quote, so I thought I'd share that with you to start out. Dr. Custer also went on to then to talk about Wake Forest University, and Wake Forest is certainly a leader in my profession. They do a lot of really amazing things with their career center and the partnerships in particular that Wake Forest is forging with their academic affairs and their career center. And that's very much what we're trying to accomplish here at Boise State. And that, to be honest, it certainly is a change in the way we have operated historically. And so with any change, certainly that brings up challenges for us here at the Career Center and at Boise State. So I have some benchmark data I just want to set the stage for you with. And this is really data that will help you understand what we're trying to accomplish, or to set the background for what we're trying to accomplish, along with why we're here asking for a student fee. So NACE is our Career Center Professional Association. It's the National Association of Colleges Employers. Every year they do a benchmark survey, and they classify the universities into Carnegie classifications. So at the Masters Large University, which is where Boise State currently resides, in 13-14, the career centers at those universities averaged 1,387 one-on-one counseling appointments each during that year. At that same time frame, Boise State, actually, our career center, facilitated 2,038 one-on-one appointments for our students. If we take that a step further and then look at students to professional FTE ratios, again, at those Masters Large universities, the average ratio is almost 1,700 students per professional staff member at their career centers. At Boise State's, ours is closer to 3,000 students per professional staff member. Now, 10 years ago, those ratios probably would have been okay here at Boise State. Boise State was a different university. We were in a different time. We had different employer expectations placed on our students. And to be honest, the Career Center was very different 10 years ago. It really was set up as a destination for seniors to go to when they're getting close to graduating, so that they could develop their resume or have somebody help them with their resume or help them interviewing. So it was really more of a destination for students in that senior year. That is no longer the case, and it really can't be the case. If we're really going to live up to Dr. Custer's vision, his vision in his quote, if we are going to make sure that our students are employable upon graduation, we need to get to those students early, and we need to get to those students often. We need to be able to get to them and help them go through that career decision-making process, their career planning process, so that they can take advantages of all of the opportunities that this university has to offer, both inside and then outside of the classroom. So we need to help them make their college experience count. Now, given this direction that we're moving, along with some of our limited staffing numbers, we know that we can't rely just on one-on-one appointments to help our students. It's not a sustainable model for us, or pretty much for any university. So we have certainly made a focus shift, and over the past 5 years, we have embarked on a collegiate employment workforce readiness research project. And out of that research project came Make College Count. And I hope when I say Make College Count, those aren't new words for anybody. I hope you all have heard of those words on this campus. But what Make College Count is, it really is I like to refer to it as an all-hands-on-deck effort. So it can't be just the Career Center. It crosses functional boundaries, and it is an attempt to get to our students early in their college experience, to help them go through that whole career decision-making and then the career planning process. So again, they take advantages of the resources and the opportunities on campus to gain the skills that they're going to need, to have the experiences they're going to need, and to build the networks that they're going to need in order to become employable when they do graduate. Now, I can tell you, the really good news about Make College Count is this is a message that's being heard, and it's being heard very loud and clear by our students. So between the fall of 2013 and the fall of 2014, our appointment numbers increased 50% for first and second year students. So for first and second year students, a 50% increase in appointment numbers year over year. That is really significant for me because I've spent a long time trying to move from the helping seniors, having the seniors come in saying, hey, I'm getting ready to graduate, and moving back and trying to work on the career decision-making process. So hopefully if we can do that, we won't need to have the seniors in our office because they will have done the things necessary to make them employable and competitive and be employed upon graduation. So that's a pretty exciting thing for the Career Center right there. But with any shift, it always comes up with challenges. And so up here is really our appointment numbers over the past 5 or 6 fiscal years. What we did in order to make college count, in order to build the foundation for Make College Count, is we made a choice to pull one of our career counselors off of one-on-one appointments in order to create the content for Make College Count. In order to create the content, online content for students, in order to create the content and the resources for our faculty and staff members in order to help them engage with students. So you can see where there is a drop in numbers. And that 1,800 is an estimate. This is what I'm estimating that will happen this year. We're just only halfway through, but that is what I would estimate. It's important to understand that this is not a sign of the demand from our students. It's more of a capacity issue for us, and we cannot necessarily see all the students that are making requests to come visit us. So, as I said, we know we can't stick to just one-on-one appointments because while that is certainly the most effective means of interacting and intervening with our students, it by no means is the most efficient way. So one of the things that we have done is look for new and innovative and creative ways to connect with more students using less resources. So more group workshops, group counseling sessions, lots of different online video content. And the only one I'm really going to point out here is our Make College Count modules, which again, we started in the fall of 13, spring of 14, creating these modules. They are, and we worked with faculty to do this, they are online, multimedia, independent. Students can do them on their own. Faculty can do them in a classroom. Faculty can assign them. And we actually had the opportunity this past fall. We put them in about 6 separate 100-level classes, which impacted 1,000 of our first-year students. So that was really exciting to see. And to see the assessment of the modules from a student perspective. I mean, students' knowledge of career planning increased, their career decision-making skills increased, and just some of their one-on-one comments were pretty impressive to see the impact that they had. Now, our challenge with this is that these services, we're reaching more students than we ever have before. But what's happening, I think, is that we're reaching students that probably would have never happened to walk through the door at the Career Center. They're seeing what they're missing. They're seeing what needs to happen within their college experience, and now they're coming into the Career Center. So what's happening with these types of activities is it is generating more one-on-one appointments for the Career Center, which brings up our challenge. Again, I'm happy and thrilled to say our message is certainly being heard. Make College Count is in the minds of our students, and it certainly has created a higher demand for our individual services, all of our services at the Career Center, but also our individual services. This creates longer wait times. We are now booking students out for appointments up to 3 weeks later, which from a doctor appointment perspective doesn't seem so long, but from a student perspective, that's showing us that we're getting a lot higher of no-show rates. Students are, we do remind them, we send them appointment reminders, but they're starting not to show up. I think students really, when they have a concern, they want it addressed sooner than 3 weeks out.
Your time's getting short, so you need to start wrapping up.
Okay, I got it, thank you. And then we also get feedback about our lack of availability from different constituents across campus. So our request for you is we would like a $2.50 fee. Doing that would allow us to hire an additional career counselor. It would also allow us to maintain our career peer program, which was initiated last summer in order to take some of the weight off of our counselors. It's students, higher level students, or upper division students, and graduate students who are doing job search advising. That program is based on one-time funds, and it will end in July 1st if we do not get any further funding. So again, doing those two things will also allow us to open up almost 1,500 extra appointments per year for our students here at Boise State in order to help them take control of their future and make their college experience count. So thank you, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. Yeah.
I have a comment and question. First off, I believe that the Career Center is a great resource for students, regardless of class, and I've had individual appointments with Alex Gutierrez, and I can't speak more highly of the Career Center. And I would encourage a lot of my friends to attend the events if they're serious about achieving their goals. But my question to you is, what is your long-term plan in the upcoming years to satisfy the increase of students attending events at the Career Center and seeking individual appointments?
Well, we are, like I said, that's a lot of what Make College Count is it's videos, it's modules that students get. So again, once we create them, it doesn't require any more of our time or a significantly less amount of time than one-on-one appointments. And so we have a whole series of these modules planned. We just have the first ones right now that are focused on career decision-making and planning. We're in the process right now of developing ones on the job search and personal branding and resumes, and then we're going to go back and fill in with the internships and stuff like that. So we do have that. We're looking at, we've implemented this spring more group counseling sessions. They're somewhat successful. It's the first time we've done them, so it's a different model for students. So we've had about 45 students take advantage just in the last month of the group counseling sessions. But again, what's happening, and again, we have to learn from this too, what's happening is they go through the group counseling sessions and then they want further individualized treatment. So I think that, that is our challenge, is that one-on-one appointments will always be the most effective means of helping students, and you've experienced that with Alex. There's nothing better. But we have to balance that out with all of the other services, online services, group type of sessions that we can, so that we can connect with a lot of students and then save our services for those that really need that extra help.
Okay, so just so I'm understanding this correctly, you're going to still stick with the individual appointments, but just create more opportunities for students to do their own venture out.
Yeah, individual appointments they'll never go away, but they can't be the only thing we offer because we can't sustain that model.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes, Kimber.
How many student positions do you currently have?
Student positions.
So the career peer program?
Oh, the career peer, we actually have one right now.
Okay.
We started out with two, but then we've kind of consolidated it over time into one position.
So between a new full-time counselor and the career peer program, you can nearly double the appointments that you're offering.
Because right now we have two full-time counselors taking appointments. That's who's taking the brunt of all the appointments. Fowler.
Thank you, Connie Bauer. Firstly, I'd just like to note that the demand is obviously there. And I know that the demand is there because of the use you've been able to make of the fees in the past, which is new, correct?
Yes, we got our first student fee 3 years ago, I think.
Yes, and so we've seen dramatic growth.
Mhm.
I guess really I'm just crying that out of you right now so that that is put here on the table to say that like we have gotten as students more than our money's worth for this.
Yes, yes, all the fees that go to us, they're not spent on programs, they're not spent on items, they are spent on people who are there to serve students in one-on-one settings as well as group settings, and as the liaisons to your individual colleges. Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you, Debbie. And with Debbie, our next presenter is on the Women's Center. And we have down Chris, but is Adrian coming as well? Then we'll let, Chris is our Dean of Students. Adrian Bang is our Associate Director of the Women's Center, and they will present on this fee increase.
Well, good afternoon. While that's loading up, I can't help but comment. I feel like I'm on that show, Shark Tank. So I know you'll all be very polite and friendly, and I don't see Mark Cuban in the audience. So we'll be brief and efficient and get you through this. I'm here today to ask for an investment, though, in the program at the Women's Center, and that a total investment in our ask is $1.46. So we'll explain the details of that as we move on. But before we get to that, Adrian Bang, who's our expert in our programming area, is going to cover the programmatic parts that we're talking about today. Adrian?
Thanks, Chris. So in case you're not familiar with the Women's Center, I just want to share a little bit about our mission, who we are, and what we do. The Women's Center's mission is to empower students to achieve their academic goals by providing educational programs, support services, and a safe space. Our educational programs are supportive of students' ability to create an equitable society through the promotion of critical thinking skills related to equal opportunity, personal development, and leadership. Confidential support is actually available to all members of our campus community, and our areas of specialty are around personal, financial, or academic roadblocks, as well as folks who might be victims of crimes such as stalking, sexual assault, or relationship violence, and support for folks who identify within the LGBT community, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, intersex, asexual community, and allyship. So we also serve on a variety of campus communities, advocating for inclusive and equitable policies, services, and programs, especially as they affect women and members of the LGBTQIA community. Ultimately, our efforts support campus safety, retention, and social change. One of the programs that we are perhaps most well known for, at least recently, is the bystander intervention workshops that we offer. I just want to show a little bit about the growth of that program, which started in fiscal year 2012. This program is really something that's been highlighted at a national level. You may have heard actually President Obama speaking at the Bringing in the Bystander campaign. We offer an adapted version of that for this campus. As you can see, in fiscal year 12, we facilitated workshops for 348 participants. In our most recent full fiscal year, 1,517. So we've had tremendous growth, about 336%. This growth represents partnerships with student diversity and inclusion, housing, the Honors College, the College of Arts and Sciences, football, basketball, and track teams, as well as the Student Assembly, and multiple sessions through the UF 200 and 300 classrooms. The demand for this increase in violence prevention education, we attribute that not only to our campus' genuine interest in understanding of these issues, but also from the release of the Dear Department of Education Dear Colleague letters in 2011 and 14, the Violence Against Women revision that happened in 2014, as well as the Campus State Act. And you can see a little bit about these images as well. So one of the things that we expect is for there to be continued growth as the national focus continues on these issues and compliance across many different institutions. So you can probably think of an example on our own campus, the White House It's On Us campaign that our students initiated. But this is just one more example of interest in really bringing dialogue to our campus and creating change around these issues. As you're likely aware, institutions who don't comply with these laws are at risk for loss of federal funds, in particular Title IV financial money. So this policy and responding to it, our compliance efforts are not really different in ways to the No Child Left Behind Act. However, our institution's case, we're self-governing and really trying to act proactively.
So beyond the compliance issues, and there is a need that you've all heard about today with regard to our students. We have a student population that is younger than it has been in the previous history. Those students come with various different kinds of needs and concerns, but they're also participating in our campus much differently. So some of the program growth combined with our compliance needs has resulted in the need to have more education provided to our students. And so today's ask is really broken down into three separate parts. The first one is $1.25 per full-time student. The second is 17 cents for that 1 to 13 credit hour group. And then finally, we've never asked for a summertime fee before, but that summertime fee will be 20 cents. And we're asking for that combination of fees to, again, make up for some of the conversation you've heard about today in terms of our student demographic, but to recognize, too, that our student need goes year-round. 365 days a year, we need to be educating our students, providing a safe place, providing advocacy and confidential resources to students. And if you've heard about Title IX, we referenced it in sports a while ago with Mark Coyle. Our Title IX dilemma is even bigger than that, and it represents all of our students, faculty, and staff on this campus. Again, you can see that we've had a growth in our student population. Our fraternities and sororities are wonderful consumers of our programs, as well as the It's On Us campaign, which is a fantastic partnership with ASBSU, the White House, and others. These are significant things to think about because when we have these partnerships, we reach more students. But we can't do that with our current fee structure, which represents about $17,000 a year. So when you think about the ask that we're putting before you today, it is a large increase proportionate to what we're currently receiving, but we believe that our numbers demonstrate that need as well as the compliance issues we've already talked about with you. So when you wonder about what we do, it's a lot of programming, but it's also lots of staff time and involvement in that. And you've probably seen our wonderful ambassadors around campus come and spin the wheel, answer some questions. We've got a fantastic group of students, and that's what our previous student fee money went towards. This current initiative is going to take more from us, and what we're asking to do with the current request is to plow that back into student development programs, some staffing needs, as well as programmatic concerns, and some increased costs that we've incurred over time, again, with the shifting of our enrollment. You've heard about that previously today.
So just in conclusion, we believe that these fees are necessary in really helping reduce the risk for our institution to create a safer campus community where faculty and staff are more informed about how to refer students that they have concerns about, where members of our entire community are acting proactively to create safe spaces and intervene when they see things that are not safe, as well as, again, to talk about what's healthy in relationships, what is consent, and how do we promote the ideals of our institution. So with that being said, we will stand for questions.
Any questions of Chris and Adrian?
So you said that the fees you've been collecting so far have gone to hiring the students that are helping do all this outreach. And that's like a majority of the student fees that you're collecting, not just going up. Is that going to be the continual trend, is going towards having more students as outreach, or will the money be used for other means to boost the number of students that already exist in there? I guess I'm just asking out of curiosity what the fee increase would go to next as well.
Both. We have the current funds go to employ student help, and that's $17,000-ish. The additional monies need to go towards more staffing, students included, because we're running out of our capacity to be in classrooms, to be at events, to help students, coach students, working with individual groups and sponsor programs.
So I guess my question, off the dollars is, are you all asking for enough? As we see this as a rising, I don't want to say problem, but something that we need to address at our university, just like we see with the career, like we see with the other things. Are you all asking for enough money to be able to support our institution in years to come? Is this enough money for you to continue this next year and continue to keep growing to reach more parts of our campus?
We believe it is. I think you have to be realistic in that nobody in our environment, higher education, gets everything they want. And we believe this is a measured request. It'll help us serve the students we need to serve. I think that we need to stay on the budget and be focused. Having too much money is also a problem in terms of just taking money to do nothing with it. We believe the ask is right and appropriate to where we need to be today.
Thank you both very much. And with that presentation, while we're not finished, we do end the segment that is for our budget consideration on Friday. And now we will go into our final presentation that is about, it's for information only, but it's about a very large part of what students do when they come to the institution, room and board rates. And Kim Thomas and Dean Kennedy will come forward. Kim is our Executive Director of Campus Services and Student Affairs, and Dean is on standby, but very willing to come forward as our Director of Housing and Residence Life. Eric gonna have to come help you too. That's why Eric is here. He's happy to help.
As Lisa mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and present for both housing and dining today. If he's on standby over there, if there's questions that are going to specifically in regards to housing. Today we plan to cover why the housing and dining rates were being requested to increase, what our proposals are for next year and why, what the specific changes are, and share with you some of our peer comparisons to have that in there as well. I know we talked about this last year for those of you that were on the committee last year, but again, both housing and dining are auxiliaries on campus, so they have to pay for all of their own operational costs, facility repair and improvements, program improvement, debt service, and even ancillary costs of student labor. So we'll go into some more details, but those are the things that are really driving their rate increases. Specifically, we are going to be asking for a $40 to $50 increase in meal plan rate, which is 2.5 to 2.7%. We round to the nearest $5, which is why we're doing this there. A 3% increase in resident hall street townhome and apartment rates, and then also proposing bundling of the utilities into the actual rental rates for apartments. And I'll get into more detail about that. Dining. Specifically with dining, right now this year the consumer price index for food and labor increased 2.7%. Our contract with Aramark allows them to get a rate increase based on that CPI data. So because of their inflationary money to operate, beginning in FY18. The reason we're not asking for a bigger rate increase right now is because we're out to bid with a food contract right now. We're hopeful that we're going to actually be able to get some better rates that are going to help this financial picture. We want to make sure that we're increasing our rates enough to maintain our current operating income, but we also don't want to address the longer term need at this time until we have a better picture of our future and need of position. Housing. As I talked about with dining, we will consider make sure the service charge is part of the discussion. Bundling utilities and apartment rates. Increased access and speed to wired and wireless internet is a big need in housing that's causing some of this increased need, as well as anticipated increases in salaries and benefits. Utilities. The proposal is right now, students and apartments actually pay for their own utilities. Housing is actually proposing that we bundle that into their rates. That would allow them to have a flat monthly rate. They don't have to worry about the fluctuation in utilities. They've actually pulled the monthly averages for cable, laundry, and gas and electric, and have calculated what that rate would be. there would be a maximum use number to prevent, obviously, the, overuse of utilities. But this is actually something that students have requested and would like to see to help them manage their monthly budget. Again, looking at a 3% increase, I won't go over this data with you. You have it in your packet. But this is showing you what those rates would increase to be. And again, our price comparisons, which just like we do in dining, that same group of schools, we actually compare housing rates with as well. And consistently, our housing rate comparisons are lower than our state comparisons. Also the comparison in the local market currently for the apartments, which again continues to be below market trend. And the data you've got in the packet. One additional change that housing will be making this year that I wanted to share and talk about is adding 100 beds, converting University Square to first-year housing. This is actually going to allow us to add 100 beds of first-year housing to the university. Renovation costs are currently estimated at $19,000. Additional revenue is about $500,000 annually. So we've got less than a 2-year return on investment, plus additional meal plan participation. So we'll be a little better ROI than that. But we also want to acknowledge that this negatively impacts the FY16 balance sheet ratios for that first year as that project was not capitalized. I wanted to make you aware of that especially. Looking at a 3-year trend in housing, net income has moved from 12% to 6% in the 3 years FY12 to 14. This projected increase actually keeps the forecasted net income at that 6% so that the balance sheet doesn't continue to lose additional ground. Drivers that are causing the increased costs are benefit costs, salary and benefits costs, which are 27% of housing revenue, utility increases, which is 11%, the administrative service fee, which is 4%, and their debt service increases, which is 36% of their revenue. So the biggest portion of their expenses are really not controllable expenses for housing, and that's really what I wanted to point out here. Revenue has not kept pace with these inflationary costs. So our net income ratio has been affected, and the return to reserves for capital projects has been affected. Aging facilities fees can increase revenue to reserves as well as we discussed before, the increase the IT infrastructure. Housing 10-year financial forecast. The numbers in blue up here are the ending fund balance before you look at the capital needs. When you look at the orange numbers and see the big losses, that's really taking into account the goal, which is to have 1.5 the debt service in reserve for a long way from there, and we acknowledge and understand that, as well as acknowledge and understand that we're not currently able to put in reserves for resident calls at the rate that we would currently like to. So we're really trying to get an increase that holds us steady, doesn't necessarily help build that long-term need. Rather than have the students come, they actually just write a letter. These both housing and board rates were reviewed with the Resident Call Association, developed in conjunction with the Resident Call Association, and they actually support the changes in the increase.
So given the conversation at the table while she was going on, I would be shocked if you don't have questions. I'm looking at some of you doing that. Kimber.
This is just a clarification question. When you're talking about bundling utilities, are you talking about bundling those across all? So it would be the same bundle for every apartment, or is it by complex?
Every student would get their utilities paid for as part of their rent. They would all have cable, they would all have internet, and so that would be
But I mean, is it gonna be the same across all of those? So whether I live in the village or whether I live in, I can't think of another name.
So,
Height.
they would all be
Height,
the same.
okay. And then can I ask?
Go ahead.
Sorry. So question around the wireless access and the increased need for that. Did we also though here, isn't that part of what OIT covers for you? So it was part of their presentation.
It's actually something we're partnering and working with OIT on currently. Historically, OIT has not funded any cost of wireless networking in all the Vineyards buildings, with a few exceptions. This is something we're partnering and working with them on right now, trying to negotiate a shared structure.
But I didn't see that in your rate increase rationale. Are you setting aside some of this increase for broadband bandwidth increase?
Yes, that's one of the things that, that's intended to be funded.
And your debt payment, is that from Lincoln?
This Lincoln is also a debt payment from Morrison Taylor, because I actually think there's still also some from the original Casey vendors.
I think so. So you're talking about your change in payment of the combined, not new debt.
Combined, it's the increase in the debt payment.
Yes, yeah, so maybe this isn't the place for this question, but just a simple broad curiosity. Why is it that university housing is dramatically more expensive than like a house right off campus if two people were to share their own home? Is it just because like internet and utilities are included? Because I still run it through my mind and I've never lived on campus, and maybe this is the first time I've really felt I had a place to really be curious about this. Sorry, we can talk about it later if you need, but why is that?
I think basically we have students living in close proximity to campus, access to all the different services, being on campus, studying, jobs. They can pay a little bit more for that level of proximity to campus. Community building, staffing, like a few spaces you don't get in off-campus apartments, generally that I'm aware of, other staffing. So we have RAs and CAs that help foster the growth and development of students. And as you saw from our budget, 27% of our budget is fixed. So you're paying for that, and they're off campus, you don't have to. Also, most of the bed spaces that are at Boise State are single rooms. So in a single room, you have your own space. Off campus, you can certainly fit 5 to 18 people in a which is great to be able to do the cost, but those individuals don't have their own space. So you pay more for like a single room, a few people sharing a bathroom, other people are I think those are some of the basic. But great question.
One you probably get a lot, I would imagine.
What's the administrative service charge?
So all of the auxiliary units on campus actually sit in called the administrative service charge that is paying for the infrastructure costs. So the university charges us for legal, payroll, OIT, all of those infrastructure costs. We pay our portion of those via the administrative service charge.
An overhead rate. Self-support programs also are paying an overhead rate.
Right. Okay. I was going to make a joke about wouldn't administrative costs go to you also making this presentation, taking the time to come here.
Other questions?
I want to
Stacy?
ask about the monthly bundle rate cap. So how does that work?
So if students, for example, spend their heat way after spend their vehicle unreasonably, there's a cap. So it's free unless you exceed that amount.
So you've got those built in and you know like which unit goes over and then you would. So does that include the wireless in there? So how are you gonna manage, I mean, that's frankly been an issue for all of us.
That's what we're working with
Yeah.
right now is how we get the infrastructure to work, what the limits are for different areas, and all of those things.
And depending on the level of transgression, we're very soon going to get Kevin's security involved in the enforcement of that. Just kidding, Kevin.
I want to be the data point.
See with all the new apartment buildings going up around Capitol, there being a decrease in students living on campus. There's a lot of beds over there.
There's a lot of beds, and we've done a lot of projections, and we actually think that there's enough demand right now, that that's going to be okay, in itself. There's a big difference in race and what's included and what's not, and so we actually feel like we're going to be okay from that perspective.
Well, and the demand placed on the university right now is the only reason that those places are viable as business options to build in the first place, too.
How many beds do we have?
2,400 right now, 2,500.
That includes all the apartments too? Okay, so the apartments are they undergraduates and graduates both in the apartments?
Married families, graduate students.
That new space for those 100 beds, when you say you're doing renovation, are you moving kitchens and stuff as well?
Yeah.
Okay, because a lot of students ask, more so on tours, and I don't know the answer, so I just prefer, but when they come in, you require purchasers to be on campus to have a meal plan. But they said, I've got a kitchen, so I don't know, do you have a plan? Is there an option out? Is there
Philosophically, we require all persons to have meal plans for several different reasons. That includes the health of the student, the community building aspects that come with that, and there's a myriad of studies out there that support the rationale of doing stuff like that, but we don't at this time in
So what would that renovation look like in that space? Are you going to be covering beds, or how is that?
Yeah, and so right now we have a small bedroom and a larger bedroom. We're basically like most of the renovation is furnished with construction. Since the building was constructed 12 years ago, there's been no infrastructure done. So as we're creating apartments, single room and a double room, providing furniture for that, we carpet in common areas and in the rooms as well as Square, University Square. So, and for your first question, all of the suites have kitchens, so all of the suites that have water have access to the kitchen. So we get that question a lot in housing, but we explain our rationale and work with any students that may have difficulties. Airmark is great at our food testing station.
Any other questions? Thank you, Kim and Dean. We appreciate it. Before we adjourn, Stacy, I thought I would ask you if you would like to talk about Friday.
Okay. So on Friday, we will meet as the Executive Budget Committee in Admin 205 from 9 a.m. till 1.
Exactly.
Noon. Yeah. Well, no, not exactly. But the last couple years, we have gone for a good solid 3 hours. What we're going to be bringing to you is we're going to make sure all of our worksheets are updated. You might note that we made an adjustment on the enrollment figures just on the undergraduate portion after spring enrollments came in at 10-day, we decided, well, in order to make sure we meet the budget, we adjusted it down 1%, so that impacts the revenues. So we'll have all of that corrected. Karen and I have a pretty detailed worksheet that has to tie to something that goes to the state board that really estimates all of those revenues. So we'll talk about how that works. So I have some, we've done something different this year with the state board's Business Affairs Committee, Business Affairs and Human Resources. It's called the BAR Committee. But I call it the Business Committee because everybody thinks we go to the bar, but that's not what we do. So, you know, to address some of your concerns, a real concern from the state board about really limiting these tuition increases. So we would come in every year and tell them about this fund shift issue. And we've really gotten to a point where they really understand what that is, and that, yes, you must come in and ask for an increase because you must be able to cover those health benefit and salary increases. But they're really pushing us on what they really want to limit other things that we put in there. So all of us at all of the institutions are being pretty deliberate about what goes into the tuition number, but ultimately they care about what's the total tuition and fee increase. So we're going to have some spreadsheets that take all of the proposals that you have seen. We'll probably do a little bit of work to make sure that full-time, part-time adjusts so that you can see, you know, how we make that, you know, 1/13 of the other as we move toward that, and how that will impact the revenue that was requested, so that we can kind of move in that direction. But what you'll see me doing is kind of the tuition piece will be based on expenses that we're supposed to cover, and how that translates into the going linear to 13 credits, and then adding in the fees and how that will impact the overall increase on both the part-time and the full-time rate. So when you come to the meeting, you'll have, well, I think we'll be able to give you some of the information ahead of time, but then come prepared to discuss the merits of the increases, even though we will have a bunch of math things up there about this is our target, but it's the things that we do within that target maybe that can be adjusted, where we talk about the principles of the requests and, you know, the concerns that you might have, or what does this mean for the long term. So come with that in mind, and we'll provide information. And Karen will have a projected spreadsheet, much like for those of you who went last year, where we adjust numbers and it brings up numbers, because, you know, we have the concern with what's the increase for, how is that going to impact them, what's going on with our enrollments, but also ultimately, what is that tuition and fee increase that we're going to be bringing to the board, and will it cover those costs that we need to bring forward. I actually meet with them again in early March, so we'll be ready to go, and I know they'll push on the number, but I'll need to be able to make the presentation about the need, and I think that's where all of you can help with. I'll refer to the Executive Budget Committee and saying, really seeing the need for some of these proposals that folks brought forward. Okay? And maybe we'll get finished in less than 3 hours, but maybe not. Okay, any questions about that? Bring your calculator. No, we'll try. That's what I've been sitting over there doing. Well, if we get that or this. But we'll have that projected on the screen so you'll see what the numbers are, okay?
Will there be more minutes?
No, we might need to break down for,
please,
you know.
Please don't bring them.
Actually, I've been eyeing your unsalted mixed nuts there and wondering
they're
if you could get
so
some
good.
of those.
Right? Oh, they're so good.
Okay.
Thank you, Stacy. And let me just tell you all again, thank you very much. This is a very important part of the budgeting process for Boise State. We appreciate all in attendance today, and the committee. Thank you for the time you spent today, and we'll continue to spend as we go forward on Friday. See you then.